Well, good afternoon, everyone. It's good seeing all of you all again on this wonderful Tuesday night. I'm always so excited to be with each of you all. Our topics for the last 2 weeks has been about children and understanding them developmentally so that parents aren't shocked. This is a 4-part series, so tonight you're getting series number 3. And it's kind of interesting that I would think that I would have hundreds of people who want to know about their children developmentally, but I guess they're saying enough is enough. But it is my belief that if you understand your children developmentally, there won't be so much abuse, there won't be so much expectations of children beyond their developmental age. I am not trying to have a college class. What I'm really trying to do is give parents some basic understanding of where their children are developmentally so they can be aware of the benchmarks, so they can be aware of the expectations, and they can be aware of when the child has missed a developmental benchmark. Because we all know that if children miss a developmental stage of development, according to Jean Piaget, who's a Swiss scientist, the person shall go through that stage before they die. So in other words, if they miss the stage of development called the sensory motor, or what I would call the egocentristic stage, guess what? Before they die, they may be an adult male or adult female acting like a child. Before I begin, I do want to again thank you all for coming on. My name is Dr. Willie Miles. I am the president of Dr. Willie Miles Children's Foundation, located here in Atlanta, Georgia. Our mission is very simple. It is to make children our priority. It's to make children our priority. And I just believe that before we talk about loving our children, we must understand our children. Every parent says, I'm not going to say every, but most parents say, I love my children. I'll do anything for my children. Except become educated about your children. Except being educated about your children. It only takes a few moments. Yeah, and about moments, I'm talking about, we spend an hour a week talking about the development of our children from birth to adulthood. And after that, you're on your own. I am very pleased to announce, though, that we now have all of our sessions, Let's Talk About It, is now on our website. So if you miss a session, you can now go to our website and see the entire session, So I'm really excited about that. So tell your friends and family members, if they've missed any of our sessions, please go on the website and look at that session. Y'all recall Dr. Sharon Brown, who talked about sex trafficking? Guess what? We have both of her sessions on there. I'm telling you, it's just awesome. When we had Mr. Stephen Turner talking about fatherhood, guess what? You can go to the website now. And Stephen is talking about fatherhood. It's right there. We have 12 videos on our website now that all you have to do is go there and click it. I tell you, I am just so excited. And just by the way, Dr. Sharon Brown is actually on with us tonight. So I may call on her just to talk for a few minutes with us. I know she's saying, you didn't ask me this, you didn't tell me this, so I'm not prepared. Always be prepared. But I do want to share that we're doing some great things here in Atlanta. The foundation is. And for those who are newcomers, we actually did a acknowledgement of the first responders here in Atlanta. We provided Chick-fil-A boxes to 9 fire stations in the metro Atlanta area. Very excited about that. And presently, we're working with other organizations in the mental health arena to address issues throughout our community. So that's what we're really all about. Our agency is an agency that really wants to provide a service, not a typical service, but an education and awareness service to anyone who wants to listen to us. And that's throughout the United States. So share with your friends and share with everyone else that this is what we do. People go to our website. We're very excited also to launch the Office of Social Justice, the Office of Social Justice. And our goal is to make sure that we are an active partner throughout the Atlanta area and throughout the state of Georgia, for a matter of fact, throughout the world, because anyone who has access to a computer or to a cell phone can access our trainings. We're going to start those trainings in the month of September. We've asked corporations to support us with that, to make sure that we can train enough people and provide the resources, because we'll have to update our equipment. We've updated it a little bit. We have, at least our little stand here now. We have our camera and our phones here, and we're actually looking at now start podcasting. And that costs a couple $1,000s by itself. I never worry about money. I just believe that where God has placed you, he'll make provision. So I want to make sure this agency is not an agency that's out there begging anyone for anything. I just believe that people are going to see a need for us, and they will bless us. So that's the way I see things. But again, for the last 2 weeks, we've talked about children's development. And we think that children's development is critically important. And I think it's critically important for parents. I think I told y'all last week that I wish there was a course required for anyone who is pregnant. They must go through and learn the 4 developmental stages for children. So when the child is born, or before the child is born, they have some understanding of the expectations of the child. So I'm going to give some brief refreshers so we can understand what we're talking about. First of all, for those who are coming on, we're talking about understanding the developmental stages of children. No more surprises from birth until they become a teenager. The first week, we talked about sensory motor, and I use the word egocentrism a lot. The sensory motor stage. And the sensory motor stage is a stage where children is from birth to 12, maybe sometimes 18 months, where children are learning through senses, but they also are very egocentric. And egocentric simply means that the child feels that he or she is the center of the world and they have to be catered to. And of course, we all know that it's very, very true that children, babies, can't take care of themselves. So therefore, a responsible person, a parent, a guardian must be there to feed the child, must be able to change the child's pamper or diaper, and must be able to understand when the child has a pain. What happens when an adult, a responsible adult, is not there is the child actually misses the stage and goes to the next stage. And what eventually happens is that he has to come back to the egocentric stage, but he may come back to the egocentric stage when he is or she is 25 years old. And so what you'll then have is a 25-year-old feeling that they should be catered to, that everything should be provided for them, that they don't have to do anything, that just because they're there, they ought to be taken care of. And I'm sure each of us knows someone who's just like that. And when you see people like that, what you should say is, they missed the sensory motor stage, which encompasses the egocentric stage. Egocentrism means simply about me. It's all about me. And it sounds selfish to those of us who are adults, but babies are selfish. Babies have needs. They can't do things for themselves. So the first stage we talked about was the sensory motor, and I also blended in egocentrism. So it's very important that you get that. Some of you all have had children, and you say, well, let them just cry. And I'm saying you may not want to do that. And I'm not talking about babies who have been held and are used to being held, and they cry when you put them down. I'm talking about babies who cry, who have needs that are not met. And not only just babies, but children who are going through that stage. So if you know that that is a stage of development, you would think that one would want to also respond to those children appropriately. I also stated that children don't just have needs when they're born. There are prenatal needs. That children start learning in vitro. You know, when you have all kinds of music playing, loud music, and the mother's always stressed, the child feels that. The baby feels everything the mother feels. So I would think the most important thing was to make sure the mother is comfortable. I would think that the most important thing is to make sure that she has prenatal care. I would think that the priority should be making sure that she's not around anything that's toxic, because anything that she's around, the child also experiences it. For some reason, we think that babies are something that's external to the mom, so we can do anything in vitro. You know, mother can be pregnant. They can smoke weed around her. They can have alcohol and cuss and fuss and all that. But the baby feels that. The baby can actually feel that. The baby hears, and it affects the child. So I would think that during that stage, the prenatal stage, of course, is that we'd be doing some reading, and we have some nice music playing, and we make sure that everything is calm for that child, because we want to make sure that we encourage development, not deter development. We want to make sure that we encourage development versus deterring development. And it's kind of amazing. Just let us think for a second. How many people do you think are providing those kind of nurturing environments for children that you know? You know, how many people place a prime focus on doing prenatal, making sure that the environment is calm, making sure that they're in a smoke-free area, making sure that no one curses around them while they're pregnant, make sure that there's no weed or other alcohol and or other substances around them. Because when you do that, that means that you really understand the impact of external forces upon the child in vitro. Then when the baby is born, he goes through the sensory motor stage, which I talked about, and then and simultaneously the egocentrism stage. The egocentrism is a stage that says, it's about me, it's about me. And that child stays in that stage from birth to about 18 months. It's about me, everything's about them. And guess what? I don't have to tell you that, because you're the ones catering to them. You're the ones who have to make sure that you're providing a service and making sure that their cribs are clean, and making sure that the diapers are changed, and making sure that everything is germ free in their rooms. So we're going to move now we went to sensory motor, which is an egocentrism. Pre-operational stage goes from at least stages 2 through age 7, and I'm going to talk briefly about what that stage is. The pre-operational stage is the stage where children are beginning to think for themselves. They're beginning to try to make things work for them outside of their own viewpoints. They're just trying to figure things out. And what I want parents to get from me is that children are always in a constant state. Children are in a constant state of trying to figure things out. For some reason, we think these children are born geniuses, and they know what everything is in our house. They know the name of it. They know where everything is, and know how to act. But our responsibility as responsible parents and our guardians is to make sure that we're setting examples for them. We also said that children, particularly babies, are not passive learners. They are active learners. They are active learners. They're learning everything that you do. And they're also learning everything that you say. They're learning everything that you do, and they're learning everything you say. So it's very important that you also are very cautious about not just what you say around your children, but what you do. I kind of jokingly said last week that some parents want to start trying to raise children at 13 years of age. You're way behind. You are way behind, and you're probably going to lose the battle. Children's personality is set by age 3. Their personality is set by age 3. Doesn't mean it can't change. The answer is no. Of course, it can change, but it's going to be much tougher, because the child is getting his values or her values from watching how you act in the household. They're watching how you respond to other family members. If every word is a cursing word, if everything looks stressed, you're creating that. And I find it so amazing when parents come and say, I don't know where he learned it from. And I respond, from you. You'll be amazed how many children are in therapy because of the inactions of their parents? How many children are in therapy because of the inactions or the improper actions of their parents? And the parent is there in amazement saying, I don't know what happened. And as a therapist, I can very easily tell them what happened. It's something that you didn't do. Now, I'm not blaming the parent. I just think that it's important that we understand development, And that's why I chose to focus 4 weeks on this, to handle each stage, so you can understand, what you have. What I forgot to tell you all is also our sessions is what I call in the box kind of sessions. For instance, I will give my audience an opportunity to actually come on live with me and share some thoughts they have. So if you want to come on live with me at any point, all you have to do is push join the live conversation. I will accept you, and then you'll be on live with me. All right? So this is very exciting for us. We've been doing this for a while. If you want to join me in the live conversation, all you have to do is say join live. I would then push accept, and you'll actually be on live with me, and you'll be able to talk to our audience. I hope I'm not confusing you all with all this jargon, but what I'm really trying to do is paint this picture of the child from birth, like then the 2-year-old. You'll hear about the terrible twos, and we say that so, like terrible twos. But what's so terrible about learning? What's so terrible about learning? The child is inquisitive. The child is into everything, trying to figure out what things are. And he or she is using his sensory motors. I may use the term his a lot, but I'm referring to human race when I say his. All right. So I won't have to keep clarifying his and her. But when the child is reaching for the plug in the wall, he doesn't know that there is a current behind there. And what we do is scream and slap his hand. But guess what? What does that mean? That doesn't taught him anything. We scream and say, don't touch that again, and hit the child's hand. Well, from the child's view, you just hit me, and I'm trying to learn. Versus trying to explain to the child, and that doesn't be theoretical, that's danger, it's hot, it hurts. So I'm trying to also change the narrative of us being so forceful and so violent with our children, and taking our frustration out on them when all they're doing is trying to learn their environment in which they're living. They're trying to learn the environment in which they're living. It is just so important that we make sure that we provide those kinds of experiences without it being punitive. We provide those kind of experiences without it being punitive, where the child can learn without fearing he or she is going to be hit for learning. We're in the pre-operational stage. It says that the child is still egocentric, but it also means he's having difficulty thinking outside of their own viewpoints. And that was the last week. And it says the main achievement of this stage is being able to attach meaning to an object. Being able to attach a meaning to an object. A stove is for cooking. You see where I'm going with this right here? A stove is for cooking. A sofa is for sitting, not for jumping on. Shoes are for putting on your feet to help you walk. So they're learning the process. They're trying to learn the word and the object meaning. That what I have on is a shirt, and we wear shirts to cover our body to keep ourselves clothed. And what is clothed? Clothes are things that people wear so they won't be naked. And we just have to slow this thing down and explain it to children. Explain versus, hey, put it on because I said put it on. I understand that as parents, we get very frustrated and we have a whole day to deal with work and in life. And you say, I ain't got time to be going through all this right here. I'm going to share with you, you go through it now or you go through it later. But also, as you're talking to your children about these processes, you're also teaching language skills. You're teaching language. Not only that, but you're teaching motor skills because the child has to be able to move. And with our children, we take so much for granted. We just say, he know what walking is. He knows he shouldn't touch the magazine on the table. He knows that that's not a toy. And my question to you is, did you ever tell him that? Did you ever tell them that matches are not toys? Because matches look great. You strike something together and something bright happens. Sounds kind of exciting to me. So I'm going to try the same thing. Then all of a sudden, our children are in therapy in firefighter programs because of, our negligence. And parents, I have to say this. We're responsible for our children up to a certain age. We're responsible for them. And they can only get what we put in them. If we don't put the proper things in them, how do you expect to get the proper things out of them? And what we oftentimes want to do is blame outside institutions for our children's lack of experience and knowledge. When I told you that the parent is supposed to be the child's first teacher and is supposed to be the child's best teacher. And the teacher's job is only to enhance what the child has learned at home. And oftentimes our children get to the school, they've not learned anything at home, so the teacher finds him or herself spending time trying to teach the child how to brush his teeth, trying to teach the child how to sit still, and also trying to teach the child how not to cuss somebody out. I'm amazed daily when I am doing family sessions and parents keep saying, I have no idea where that came from. I'm saying, why are you shocked? Think back. Think back to the day he was born. Where were you on the day he was born? What were you doing? What kind of environment were you in? And were you in a place where it was hostile? Were you in a place where, this was a surprise pregnancy and you were not sure whether you wanted the child or not? So were you at the place where you were having postpartum depression? You know where he got it from? All behaviors are learned. So there's nothing mystical about where kids learn this stuff. They learn it from someone. All behaviors are learned. Everything that you do, you learned it from somewhere. So, sensory motor, pre-operational stages from 2 to 7, and our third stage is going to be our concrete operational stage. The concrete operational stage. Now, what's so interesting about this stage, this is when the child has began to try to figure things out without using objects. In other words, he's beginning to try to think. He's trying to think on his own. And this is the stage we always saying, you're so stupid. No, what he does doesn't make sense. Well, it doesn't make sense because he's trying to make it make sense. And as parents, we have to make sure that we are helping them make it make sense. I don't want to be so hard on parents because you are what you were taught. If no one taught you this, you're not going to know it. If your mother and whoever raised you was not nurturing, usually you won't be nurturing. If the person who raised you didn't show you love, I'm talking about affect. I'm talking about embracing. You won't show love through embracing. If the person who raised you was always mean and always negative, well, guess what? You may be withdrawn or always negative. And the reason I have the advantage, my advantage is that I'm a child developmentalist, but also I'm a therapist, which I can give you it from the developmental side. I can also give it to you from the emotional side. And they both correlate, folk. And just a sad reality when children have not had the support they need and they end up in therapy because they're just so hurt. I was talking to a colleague today, and I was saying that it's kind of amazing how I'm treating children in therapy for things that happened to them when they were 5 years old, and they're 17 now. It amazes me that I'm treating adults who are in therapy who are 51, and they're still dealing with things that happened when they were 5 years old. It amazes me that I'm treating adults who are 28 years old, and they're still dealing with things that happened at age 5, and they can remember it. It amazes me that I'm dealing with clients and with children and adolescents in therapy, and they recalled when the parent gave them to the grandmother and the parent went away. And then we say, oh, it doesn't matter, they'll understand when they get older. No, they're going to hate you when they get older. We have to explain to children what's happening. And during this stage, this concrete operational, they're trying to figure things out. Let me give you an example. What happens if the parents divorce and the child's between the age of 7 to 11? The parents say, well, guess what? We sick of each other. We ain't no good for each other. So you go your way, I go my way. Between 7 and 11. Nobody talks to the child. Nobody says, okay, Dad and I are going to, together. Dad and I are going to separate. That means that he's going to live in his place. I'm going to live in my place. You guys are going to live with me. Because we're doing this, it doesn't mean he doesn't love you. We're going to always love you. So that means you'll be spending some time with him and spending some time with me, and we both love you. Versus, your dad get up out this house. He get up out of here. And you'll never see him again. And I don't care if I ever see him again. He ain't no good for you. And if I were you, I wouldn't want to see him. Like, what kind of impact does that have on the child that's between the age of 7 to 11 who's trying to figure it out? I'm treating an adult who actually this happened to. And this adult now says that he started smoking marijuana at age 13 because his parents divorced when he was age 11. He smoked marijuana for almost 4 years. He then graduated up to cocaine and meth. But he blames the divorce for his substance use. Who am I to say there was no impact? Because I believe there was some. Because he started saying, it was me. I caused the problem. They left because of me. Because you thought that between the ages of 7 and 11 that he understood what was happening. Well, how can he understand when he's still trying to figure out how to make those relationships? Am I making sense? He's trying to understand how to make the relationships between what I see and what I feel. All he knows is what you have told him. You said he's out of here and I don't want to see him again. He's no good. The child's trying to figure out, is he dangerous? Is he a murderer? What did he do to me? What did I do to him? And then the mother says, I don't want you to see him. So that means that, oh, what did I do to cause this? And we cause all these problems because we fail to not respond to our children appropriately. I always tell parents, and I tell my adolescent clients this also, never make an emotional decision because it will always be the wrong decision. Never make an emotional decision because it's going to always be the wrong decision. And it's very important that you not engage your children in a relationship that you're in and teaching them to be biased against the other, especially if it's mother and dad. Treating a client right now, families went through a divorce, child misses dad, mom says, I want dad to see him. Dad doesn't want to see him because he can't stand mom because mom has him on child support. I mean, it's just, and I keep saying, what are you all doing? And the child's in therapy, and I'm seeing the impact that it's making on him. And so I have decided that I'm going to see if it's okay for me to talk to the dad so I can let the dad know that this male child is suffering from not seeing him. And this male child is suffering, thinking that he'll never see him again. And this male child is suffering, thinking that he's been replaced with another family. For those of you who are followers of us, you learned months ago when I told you, and Stephen Turner was on with us, we talked about the effects of children who don't have their fathers. They're more likely to end up in juvenile detention. They're more likely to have mental health issues. They're more likely to commit crimes. They're more likely to drop out of school. And they're more likely to go to prison. It's just important that we know the impact that we have on our children. And it's critically important that we understand the impact developmentally that we have. And I don't think any parent does anything to their child intentionally. But it's no excuse. You know, raising children it's an awesome responsibility. It is a sacrificial responsibility. It is a responsibility to be educated, and you can't make too many mistakes with them because you're dealing with a human life. And you want your child to grow up to be independent. You want your child to grow up to be self-sufficient. You want your child to grow up to be secure and with a high self-esteem. And you want the child to grow up loving him or herself. But it's almost impossible if all he gets is being battered. It's being battered. And all he sees is negativity. Parents and followers, you got to believe me on this. You wouldn't believe how many children are in therapy because they describe this as, I never have had a happy day in my life. That's what I hear. I can't think of any time that I was happy with my family. Okay. So now I'm going to open it up for some in the box. If there are any of you on here who would like to join me in the box, please push the button that says, I want to join the conversation live. I will accept you. I'll give you a few minutes to get it together. Anyone who wants to join me in the live conversation. The first stage is sensory motor, the sensory motor stage. The second stage, sensory motor, and sensory motor deals with also some egocentrism, The next stage is the pre-operational stage, which deals with the child trying to find his own viewpoints and trying to make sense of the world outside of symbols. The third stage is the concrete operational, where he's trying to figure things out logically and trying to figure out what is logic, first of all. And he's trying to figure it out without having to refer to something concrete. In other words, I can see this. I don't have to put my hands on it to know that it's a phone. You know, I don't have to go and touch something to figure out what it is. So I don't have any brave soldiers tonight who want to join me in the box. I know there's got to be one person out there. So if not, I'm going to continue, and hopefully you will join me and share your opinions, because your opinions are very important. You're very important to me. I see Faithful Father out there who's joined us before. I see Miss Queen, who's always been an excellent guest. I see Dr. Sharon Brown, who's out there. So folk, if you'd like to join me, please do. But I'm going to move forward and talk about the relationships that should exist between parents and their children between these ages. You know, one thing I've always said is that I would never be a screamer, and I would never have to be shouting, carrying on at my child, because I didn't want my parents screaming and shouting at me. So therefore, I had a basic rule, and you can't start this rule when they're 13 years old. The rule has to be started before they're age 3. For instance, I would tell my children that in our home, if I hear music outside your door to your room, it's too loud. If I can hear your voice outside of your door, your voice is too loud. So therefore, if I hear it, there's going to be a problem. So my children are always very cautious. Don't turn that radio up too loud. Don't be no screaming up in here. Because the basic rule is, guess what? If I hear it, it's too loud. And if it's too loud, there's going to be a problem. So they knew they had to close their door. They knew if they had friends over there, they could turn the music up as long as I could not hear it. And I had the same respect for them. And so when people come to my house, they say, oh my God, your house is so quiet. It's so peaceful, because I've established that. And I established it early. For each of you, you have to establish a set of standards. Those standards have to also be developmentally appropriate. Like, for instance, you can't tell the infant, If I hear any noise, I'm gonna have to put you out because that's not developmentally appropriate. The baby gonna cry, and they gonna cry. They gonna cry loud. I don't care what you say, and you can't tell them when to cry. They'll cry at 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning. They don't care because you don't rule them. Babies rule you, and they have to be taught. They have to be taught that they don't rule you, but be taught that developmentally when it's appropriate. When we hear this a lot, everything has to be done in its own season. When it's done out of season, that means you're going to mess up. When you're doing it out of season, it's going to mess up. 4 stages. If you don't get anything else, folk, remember this. For children from birth to teenagers, to young adults, there are 4 stages. And these stages were developed by Jean, and there's a French name, I always say Jean Piaget. It's a sensory motor stage, the pre-operational stage, the concrete operational stage, and the formal operational stage. And folks, guess what? If you got it, if you get those 4 stages, you'll be less stressed, you won't be angry as much, and you'll be calm because you'll be saying, I'm asking that boy to do something that he ain't ready to do yet, developmentally. The other important thing I want to teach you all is that you cannot create development. Like you can't say, well, I'm going to do these things so I can make him go to the next stage quicker. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. It happens in sequence. It happens developmentally. You can enhance it. Once the child begins to learn things, we can teach. That's why we have the preschools. And preschools, they should be astute when it comes to development. I really think that I taught college courses. I just think that adults ought to be taught. If you're teaching, you ought to be taught the developmental characteristics of children, especially if you're teaching young children. So to me, how can you teach them appropriately if you don't understand the stage? I operated daycare centers, child development centers in Florida for about 10 years. And we were a developmental school. And I go to other schools to do observations. And I said, now, why you got this child at this table talking about coloring inside lines and the child just turned 2? It's inappropriate. Why do you expect this child to sit for 30 minutes in a chair and not move? It's just not developmentally appropriate if he's just 3. At age 3, they're going to move. Why do you expect children in a child development center who's 4 years old, you got 25 in a class, you have them sitting there like they're college students, and the teacher sits at the front of the room and reads a story? Totally developmentally inappropriate. I tell you, I've seen a lot of things. And people say, well, guess what? Oh, they can learn so much. They can learn so much. But to learn so much, they have to have a skilled person, a person who understands development, and a person who can manipulate it. I shared with y'all before that children can learn 3 and 4 languages because they don't have anything else to obstruct their language development. For us, it'll take us 10,000 years to try to learn a second language, but because we already messed it up. We already have this acquired learning where we know English and it's just hard to learn anything else. However, if we were taught this when we were much younger, we'd be speaking 3 and 4 languages. And there are some schools that I know of, especially in early childhood, who are actually teaching their children Spanish. And I say, why do that? Now, I like the idea, but if it's not going to be carried on to the public schools, you're wasting your time. Because he or she will learn it while they're in preschool, get to the elementary school, they're not teaching Spanish, and he loses what he's learned. Are you all getting anything from this? I hope you are. Because if you are, it's going to make you a much better parent. It's going to make you a much better understanding parent. And if there are parents on here who are foster parents, it it is really going to help you understand the children you have. And I always talked about foster children because that's one of my areas of understanding, is that with foster children, children who are in foster care, they need a whole lot more, which means that they have missed a lot of stages of development. And oftentimes children who are in foster care have attachment disorders. And some call it attachment reactionary disorders. But the point is that they fear people leaving them. Well, I know some children who are not in foster care, and they fear people leaving them because mama drops them off at somebody's house differently every weekend so she can go out. Now, I hear you, Dr. Miles, why are you talking about on these women so much? Well, y'all know we got women who are raising children. I'm not supporting that totally, but it is what it is. And we have women who are raising children when they missed a whole lot themselves. There have been a lot of great women, folk, a lot of great women who've raised great children. They've done an awesome job of it by themselves. I give them credit. I'm telling you, I just say men could not do it. Men are the weaker sex when it comes to raising children if they've not done it, because it is sacrificial. You have to give up so much of yourself to make sure they get it right. You have to give up so much of yourself to make sure they get it right. And you have to also be thoughtful. And being thoughtful simply means that maybe he didn't understand it. One thing Stephen Turner said, and that's why I love Stephen. To me, he's a real dad, folk. I mean, I don't know if y'all know him personally. He's a real dad. And Stephen ain't fake. He don't come over here talking about telling you how to be a dad, and he ain't. Because all you have to do is look at Stephen's children and can tell you that Stephen's been a good dad. And Stephen ain't playing around, and he ain't got to threaten them. He just loves them. And they know that. If y'all have seen Stephen Turner with his family on with us, I'm amazed at how he can call his children on this camera, how mannered they are, and how honest they are. One of his sons said, my dad is very, very strict, but I understand it's for my good. He said he's strict, but he's fair. I think that boy was 13 years old. What 13-year-old says that? What 13-year-old says that? So my whole point is that Stephen realized from a very early age that he had to be there for his children. That if he made a baby, he had to be a dad. Stephen, he just wrote a comment. He said, my kids would be dead if I didn't have a wife to help me. Stephen, you must have done something wrong today. Well, he said they'd be dead. But see, that's the whole point about relationships. And that's another story. And, with children, you have to have a plan for them. But the plan has to be a developmental plan. That's like me telling you all, they said, Miss Queen, I want you to go out there and I want you to go out there and run 5 miles. And when you finish running the 5 miles, I want you to, hop over these hurdles and so forth. Well, Miss Queen gonna look at me like I'm crazy. She's gonna say, wait a minute now. I'm not as young as I used to be. So developmentally, she can't do that. If you ask me right now, I want you to go on a run, I'll look at you like you're crazy because I've had a knee replacement and I'm 63 and I ain't running too many places. A friend of mine made a joke about it. He said, Dr. Miles, when you go and see steps, you look like you're in shock because I want to make sure that I don't fall down those steps, first of all. And I want to make sure that that I can walk those steps without doing harm to myself. Now, Stephen is trying to get us into this conversation, but I am not going there. Stephen says husbands need a helpmate to help them. I agree. But a large percentage of our women don't have helpmates. And that's why it's important that they learn it. That's why it's important that they learn it. They don't have helpmates. They have family members and who have different views. They have a street committee who always tell you what they would do if they had your child. And I tell all parents, stop listening to the street committee. The street committee can always tell you things to do about how to handle your household, but can't even handle their own household. It's so important that you get the stages. It is the sensory motor stage, the pre-operational stage, the concrete operational stage, and the formal operational stages. Those are the four. And next week, I'm going to actually talk about the formal operational stage. I've talked very briefly about the concrete, and what's so interesting about the concrete is, I don't have a whole lot of information, because what I can do is give you examples. All I can do is give you examples of where their heads are and how they're thinking. So you won't be saying, that boy's so dumb, that boy don't know the difference between a banana and a telephone. Well, there are some differences, but some children process information differently. Let me just touch upon this for a second also. I am really against this thing of labeling children, because when you label children, it puts them in a category that can damage them for life. And as educators, we know that children learn differently. And because I process differently doesn't mean I'm dumber. It simply means that I process slower. But we make processing slower a disability. Because I learn and process slower, that means something must be wrong with me because I don't process as fast as Sally. Well, guess what? Sally doesn't run as fast as I run. So is she something wrong with her? I am really against that. I'm really against the labeling of our children versus meeting them where they are and meeting them developmentally. Meeting our children where they are developmentally. If you don't get the words, the word is understanding your child developmentally. When you see people, do you understand your child developmentally? What does that mean? That means knowing what he or she should be able to do by age. And what happens if they don't? They're going to have to go through it before they die. So we're going to make sure that we enhance their development while they're young, or we're going to pay for therapy when they get older. We're gonna learn this stuff and enhance it while they're young, or we're gonna pay for therapy when they get older. And you all know most of our children don't go to therapy. And most of our families don't go to therapy. And part of me having some of our mental health specialists on earlier this year was to have us to break this need, break this thought of that only crazy people get therapy. No, not crazy people, smart people. Smart people. Miss Queen wrote, these days, everyone wants to give kids medicine and put them in special classes. No one has patience. I could not have said that better. None of them has patience, and they want to put the children on the same developmental benchmarks, which, it's such a conflict. How is it we're taught as educators that development occurs differently in different children? However, we want them to be on the same developmental benchmarks at the same time. That's a conflict. As educators, when we're trained, we're told that children develop differently. The developmental stages do not occur at the same time. So why is it then, when they get to school, we want their developmental stages to occur at the same time, or they are diagnosed, they're labeled, and then they're medicated? If you are a child advocate and you have people who have children who are in school and they're on these IEPs and all these other 401s and 405s and all those other codes they use, the word to use is, are you all teaching the child developmentally? Are you teaching the child developmentally? That's the key word. Are you teaching him? Well, he's in third grade, so he ought to be able to do third grade work. They ought to be able to do third grade work, but developmentally, he's not there yet. And guess what? We can't create development we can only enhance it. So why are you so quick to say that something is wrong with him or her because he's not at the same place another child is, when you were taught in college that children develop at different phases? Parents, I'm trying to help y'all. I'm trying to help you. Now, as a teacher would say, that would drive me crazy. That means I would have to have 4 or 5 different ways of teaching to reach each child. Oh, but I thought that's what you're supposed to be doing anyway, based upon curriculum. I thought our goal as educators is to reach each child by their specific learning style. That's what I thought. So if you have a conflict with having different ways of teaching, I wonder what college you went to and what education program you went through. Because all teacher education programs teach that children process differently and their developmental progress will differ from other children. Will differ. So if it differs, why are the ones who are slower diagnosed? I'm really excited about these sessions I'm teaching, and I just think they're going to be blessing some people. I think there really are some awesome sessions, not because I'm doing them, but I just think that it's time that even as a business, we're a children's agency, and I'm saying children are a priority. The only way I can make children our priority is by making sure that parents understand that children are their priority. And the only way I can make sure that parents understand that children are their priority is to provide some training for parents to understand their children developmentally. That's all I can do. So you're getting 4 weeks of an hour training on understanding your children developmentally, so you're not surprised by anything. And all these trainings are on the website. I want to share this with y'all as my time is wearing on, that we are our organization that we really thrive on donations. And people have been so good to us. I'm really happy about that. And we're providing services throughout the county. But what parents are telling me most, that they really like this live streaming. They're saying they really like us doing this because they can look at us at the comfort of their homes or while they're at work, and they can learn about their children. I believe if you know better, somebody help me out, you'll do better. If you know better, you will do better. So at this point, I want to thank you all for being such faithful followers. I want to thank you all for actually listening and understanding what I'm trying to get across when I talk about children being our priority. I want y'all to really thank you all for going to the website to take a look on our Let's Talk About It, to look at those videos that some people have missed. I like for y'all to refer people to our website to look at those videos, especially those foster parents who can't make these sessions in the evening. The website is available 24/7. I do have some good news also. We do have a young man in Sierra Leone who is a musical artist. He has agreed to donate a percentage of his record sales to the organization. So I'm just really so happy about that. And I committed to him that if he does that, we'll make sure that the children in Sierra Leone are taken care of. We're not just about children here, we're about children of the world. So children are not only the priority in Georgia, children are the priority everywhere they exist. I thank you all, love you all. Folks, I'll see you next week, and that'll be our last series. It'll be series number 4, formal operational thinking, and then we're going to get into some real other topics about our children and families. All right, be blessed. Thanks for joining me this afternoon.